You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. And today, I'm going to be giving my reaction to the 49ers Broncos game. Usually, I would do an instant reaction, but I was at the game yesterday, and it was pretty late when I got home, so I didn't feel like doing a instant reaction. So you guys get my, I guess less reactionary reaction a day later. Let's talk about some things that happened before the game, okay? There was some news. Kimoko Toure, he was declared out due to a personal matter. I hope everything is okay with Toure. And Eric Armstead, he was declared out with a foot injury, which after the game we learned that he's dealing with plantar fasciitis. I hope I'm saying that right. I don't know how to say that, but my brother had that, and I know that it's very painful, so definitely not fun for Armstead to deal with, and I can totally understand why he didn't play in that game. Okay, now to get on the topic of the terrible performance that we saw from the 49ers. But before I do that, I think I have to tip my cap to the defense, because I thought that the defense played a phenomenal game. As expected, Russell Wilson looked uncomfortable all night. And the Broncos made some mistakes too, like the receivers were dropping balls and things like that. So the defense, as they often do, they were handing the game on a silver platter to the offense and pretty much saying, okay, guys, just don't screw it up. By the way, my fire alarm, the battery's out. I just need to pick up some batteries, but sorry, that's going to be annoying for every few minutes on this live. Sorry about that. But yeah, I feel like the defense did everything that they could, to win this game. And they pretty much only gave up 3 points in this game, because all the other points came from, the offense, like special teams and things like that. And the offense with that safety from Jimmy Garoppolo. So, like I said, it was a great performance by the defense, and that is to be expected, right? And so when your defense gives you these types of performances, it is up to the offense to actually capitalize, and they just weren't able to do that. And it's just a very frustrating thing with this team that, I feel like we see these kinds of losses with this team all the time, where it's the offense that lets the defense down. The offense is talented. They have talent on the roster, and somehow they find ways to drop the ball. Okay. Jeff Wilson Jr. So, okay, let's talk about the run game really quick. Jeff Wilson Jr. with no Elijah Mitchell, no Ty Davis-Price. He handled 73% of the snaps. And Jordan Mason, who I thought would have, he was probably primed for a bigger role. Just seeing how much Ty Davis-Price played. TDP didn't play that much the previous week, but he got mixed in there. So I was like, okay, Jordan Mason is just going to take over those same snaps. No, Jordan Mason only had 1 carry on 5 total snaps for him, and it was Jeff Wilson Jr. the rest of the way. And I'd say Jeff Wilson Jr. wasn't very effective in this one, as again, most of the offense wasn't. Even Deebo Samuel, his carries weren't going nowhere. The Deebo Samuel carries, by the way, as great as he is as a wide back, it's so predictable. Like, it's become so predictable, and you can tell that defenses have really keyed in on, Deebo's in the backfield. Okay, everyone get ready. Like, it's just very frustrating, because it just looks, I don't think it's going to work this year like it did last season. And so they need to I don't know what they need to do, but you're pretty much just praying that Deebo Samuel can, defy all logic and make 3 guys miss like he did last week. to be able to get a big gain out of his runs. But other than that, like it hasn't been that great for Debo carrying the football just because like the defense expects it. They do their homework. They study the film. But anyway, yeah, the run game. I was actually surprised that the run game wasn't more successful in this game just because, I cited the fact that the 49ers, even with the injuries, they were fourth in total rushing yards this season, and the Broncos were fifth in rushing yards allowed. So I was like, okay, this is a great matchup. I believe it was like 80 something yards, I think, that the Broncos limited the 49ers to. And I mean, that's a great number for the Broncos defense. I mean, it's a little surprising just based on the fact that they had trouble stopping the run before that. But as I mentioned also in my preview episodes, I felt like the Broncos defense were going to key in on the 49ers run game. Everyone knows that the 49ers want to run the ball, okay? And especially now that Jimmy Garoppolo's back as the starting quarterback, you don't have the threat of your quarterback running. So your main focus is, getting to the running backs. And so, I obviously the Broncos were prepared for it, and it put the 49ers in a situation where they needed to throw the ball, especially on third downs, which they were not successful with at all. They only converted one third down last night out of 10 opportunities. And so it just not a great showing at all. I mean, it was kind of like somewhat a tale of two halves, although I feel like even before halftime, the offense was, struggling a bit. And so I'm not going to sit here and make excuses about Trent Williams being out because, yeah, I mean, certainly it got worse and you had a steeper hill to climb after that, but the offense already looked bad before that. And so they did themselves no favors. Trent Williams, by the way, I mean, obviously a huge loss. He suffered a high ankle sprain, so he's probably going to be out multiple weeks. I don't know. I don't think we've gotten the exact timetable yet for Trent Williams, but I mean, we know high ankle sprains will keep you out a few weeks, and definitely don't want to rush him back for any reason. So, just to give you guys an idea of the impact that alone had. Although I don't think it's an excuse, but Jimmy Garoppolo was pressured on 12.2% of his dropbacks when Trent Williams was on the field, so just 12.2, and then that pressure rate increased to 21.4% of Jimmy's dropbacks without Trent, and I think we saw it right away, right? Like Jalen Moore, not good. He was bad. He went in relief for Williams, and he gave up 2 pressures on 7 total snaps, 4 of those being pass pro snaps. So really, he gave up 2 pressures on 4 pass pro snaps. Just absolutely terrible. Colton McKivitz went in after that and gave up 1 pressure. It's not as bad, I guess, but obviously that's going to be a huge loss going forward, and that's something I'll talk about like this week in my preview episodes. But Burford, who had been doing great to this point, and McGlinchey, who I thought he was playing better, not better, but he's playing to the level that he always has, which I call the positive because there was a lot of concern about McGlinchey and his injuries. But in this game, Burford and McGlinchey led the team in pressures. They allowed 3 apiece. So forgettable games for the both of those guys. And as I mentioned, Jalen Moore, just not good. And Aaron Banks was actually the lone bright spot on the offensive line. He gave up just 1 pressure the entire game. So, I mean, if you want to look at some positives, that's one right there. Aaron Banks continues to look great. But let's talk about Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, You guys probably have seen this stat already, right? Because everyone talks about the fact that, well, Jimmy Garoppolo wins games. He wins games. Well, since 2020, he is 12-10, um, and he's thrown 18 interceptions, and he's lost 4 fumbles in those 22 games since 2020. In 46 regular season starts as the San Francisco as a 49ers starter, he's thrown 39 interceptions and he has lost 9 fumbles, 48 total turnovers, 49 if you count the safety. So, just pretty bad. I mean, but we like at this point, like we expect this from Jimmy Garoppolo. He has terrible games like this, and then he'll have like a decent game, and then you're like, okay, like we can work with this, and then he'll have a terrible game again. It's just like the roller coaster, and it's the Jimmy Garoppolo experience. And I think we see why the 49ers wanted to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo in the first place. I don't think it had like certainly you can say that the health had something to do with it, but obviously it's a little bit more than that, I think. It's just the fact that he puts together these awful games that really just leave you scratching your head. But at this point, I've seen people saying, well, I've seen enough of Jimmy Garoppolo. Let's put Brock Purdy out there. Guys, we just finished week 3. I know that was a terrible game, and I know Jimmy Garoppolo, like, he's going to do this again at some point this season. But I can't sit here and say, let's put Brock Purdy in, because at that point, then we're really saying, let's just quit on the entire season and see what Brock Purdy has. Why? It's about to be week 4. Obviously, this game coming up is another very important game, divisional matchup against the Rams. But my God, that just seems like a big overreaction to me, and there's no upside to that, in my opinion. So, I mean, we're just gonna have to keep on going with this. I mean, Trey Lance is hurt. What else can you do? The 49ers aren't going to make any rash decisions just based on this loss because, like I said, there have been losses like this where Jimmy Garoppolo has looked this bad before. And, they continue to stick with him. And we can't say that it was the wrong choice because last season they ended up going to the NFC Championship anyway. So it's not like this team isn't capable of, turning things around with Jimmy Garoppolo. It's frustrating. Yeah, it's frustrating. I hate to watch it. But we got to work with what we have, and that's Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. So, I think again, like the most frustrating thing, like no one's asking Jimmy Garoppolo to be a hero, right? I mean, he just has to not screw it up. And by not screwing it up, I mean don't, commit a safety by running to the back of your end zone out of bounds and then throwing a pick six. Like I've never been so happy to see a safety be called on the 49ers because it negated the fucking pick six that he threw. Like it was sad, honestly. It's sad. But yeah, I mean, he just has to not screw it up. Like that's literally all he has to do. And he finds a way. Like even that, it seems to be very difficult for him at times. But again, I feel like the 49ers can win with him. He just, again, it needs to be good, Jimmy. And I know also a lot of people talk about, well, Kyle Shanahan deserves some blame too because he starts games off, pretty aggressive. It seems like there's a good plan in place. And again, that's because the beginning of the games, Kyle Shanahan scripts the first, I don't know, I forget how many plays, like maybe 25 plays or something like that of the game. And after that, it's kind of just like based on the game flow and, kind of on the fly, like calling plays based on that. And maybe that's what we need to criticize, the play calling after the scripted plays, because there's some that are a little bit not questionable, but it just wasn't aggressive enough. And like they had a 4th and 1, and it was a drive that I thought it was going well, and I think it was on the Broncos 30, and it was 4th and 1, and I'm like, go for it, fucking go for it. I mean, because again, the defense had been stopping the Broncos offense, and like you can tell the offense wasn't really getting anything going. So when I saw that drive and we got to the Broncos 30, I'm like, dude, let's just try to punch this in. Like, let's try to get some points here. And by points, I don't mean a field goal. Like I was expecting a little bit more aggression than that. I was. So I was like, okay, like we can totally get 1 yard. Like let's Jimmy Garoppolo QB sneak this thing. And no, I mean, we ended up just going for the field goal. And again, like things like that, it's not a lot of points. The difference between a field goal and a touchdown, it's 4 points. But even for how narrow this game ended up being, we lost by 1 point. I mean, all of that matters, And again, like the Jimmy Garoppolo safety looms large because that gave the Broncos 2 points. And so you can't look at that and say that didn't matter, because had that not happened, I mean, the 49ers probably end up winning the game just off the fact that the defense was shutting the Broncos down, and all they had to do was hang on to the lead. It wasn't pretty by any means, but do it. I mean, again, this is the thing that's really frustrating to me about the 49ers offense, because it's the same game. I feel like I watch the same game over and over with them. It's like, it's literally the same thing. Defense starts off like crazy. You're like, hell yeah. And then the offense, they start off good too. We're like, okay, we're in some good rhythm. And then after that, it just falls flat, the offense. And then the defense continues to hold up their end of the bargain. The offense can't sustain drives. They go 3 and out. They can't stay on the field. So the defense keeps going out. They keep going out there and playing more minutes. It starts accumulating. And then especially the fact that they're playing in altitude. Dude, Nick Bosa looked freaking gassed at the end. Like I was feeling bad because he was, again, the defense kept getting trotted out there because the offense couldn't do anything. And like the defensive line just looked absolutely gassed, the whole defense. And so like that, then you open up opportunities for the Broncos, or the opposing offense, in this case, the Broncos, to, create a drive and get points on the board. And that's what you don't want. And that's what's so frustrating, because I see the same outcome over and over with this team. I feel like every game that they lose is the same. Like you can point it to the offense just falling flat at some point in the game. And so this one was no different. And it's so frustrating because even after all this time, I still haven't been able to fix losing that way. Like it's baffling. And yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo, I mean, to me, he was the biggest one to blame for this loss. I mean, there was like the Debo was wide open on one play and he totally missed him, or he just didn't throw it. I'm not really sure. He was wide open. He felt fine throwing it into like triple coverage, but when Debo was wide open, he couldn't get that one. So yeah, just frustrating. Like I don't really know what else to say. Like I don't want to watch the game over. I started watching the all 22, but I don't know. I might watch it again, but we'll see. I'm just kind of baffled. Jimmy Garoppolo on third downs, he was 3 of 18 for 18 yards, and like I said, they didn't convert. That was just his completions. The 49ers offense were 1 and 10 on third downs. In the second half, they punted twice. They committed a safety. They had 2 fumbles, and they had the interception as well. Again, if it had it not been for the safety, it would have been 2 interceptions, pick 6. So even worse. So I don't know. I don't know what to say about this game. I mean, honestly, it's frustrating, like I said, and it's we'll see a loss like this again some point this season. But I will say that as far as the entire season goes, I still God, the sun is like beaming on me. I really need to block that thing. But I still don't feel bad about the way that this season could end up going. It's still so early in the season. We can't say that like they're doomed. I think it's too early to say that. I also think it's too early to say, let's see Brock Purdy. Like, that's ridiculous. Sorry. I think Jimmy Garoppolo played terrible too. And he's not going to, this is who he is. But come on. No, we're not going to put Brock Purdy out there. Get a hold of yourself. But like I still have a positive outlook on the season as a whole, just because I feel like one, they've been here before. They've played through worse, right? And they've been able to turn things around. So I think they're capable of doing that. Like I said, this offense is really talented, and it's just about Jimmy Garoppolo and the rest of the offense too, just like not screwing it up. That's it. Like, and so I think we'll see games where they don't screw it up, and they'll win those. But yeah, we'll see some also where they do lose it. But altogether, I feel like that there's still a chance to make playoffs here, wild card. You guys forget, like there's another week in the season. The playoffs now allow for more teams to enter, and so maybe a year ago, this would have been really bad, but like now there's still a chance, okay? And like I said, it's week 3. This game coming up against the Rams is obviously very important. But, like Ty says here, they will turn it around. This is typical 49ers start. Yeah, they always start freaking slow. Like, I don't know what it is. And obviously, Trent Williams, it's going to have a lot of implications in these next few games where he's not going to be playing out there. But the 49ers have dealt with not having Trent Williams for some games before. And I'll look at those games. And when I do my previews this week for the Rams game, I'll show you guys what that strategy has been in the past, and what I would expect them to do this week and in the coming weeks. So I think they'll be able to work through that. But yeah, I mean, it's not going to be pretty, but they'll figure it out. Justin here says, while Jimmy did make some huge mistakes, do you think Kyle will ever change or ask for help with the offensive play calling? Seems like with all the talent we have, the offense should be better. I don't know. I don't know if he needs help with play calling. Like I said, I mean, the scripted plays to start the game always seem to be, for the most part, they seem to be pretty strong. And they could create and sustain drives with those plays. But it's kind of after that where it kind of becomes it's like when he wings it, it just doesn't work as well for him. And I'm not sure if that's a combination of like the opposing team making in-game adjustments or what. Like Kyle, I don't think is a big in-game adjustment kind of guy. So I don't know. Maybe it's that. I don't know if he needs help, but it's definitely a shared blame, I think you can say, for the offense falling flat in like the second half of games. But yeah, Ty says the play calling isn't bad, it's the execution that's bad. O-line breaking down and QB not delivering. Yeah, I mean, it's a combination, I think, of things. I mean, certainly when you see pictures of Deebo Samuel wide open and you see guys schemed open, it's not a Kyle Shanahan problem. You can say there are, I guess, obviously, if there's a theme to this, and like I said, this is a reoccurring issue with this offense that like they lose games this way, that can be that could be blamed on Kyle, but I feel like, yeah, the execution part is what can be blamed on Jimmy Garoppolo and at times some of the other members on the offense. But Jimmy Garoppolo is who leads the offense, so most of the time it's going to fall on his shoulders. And I'm not surprised, but I do have an issue with Jimmy Garoppolo never, accepting accountability for any of his mistakes. Like, I don't think he ever really points out any of his specific mistakes in his post-game pressers and says, "Yeah, I could have done that differently." Like, I don't think I've ever heard that. I don't know if anyone has ever taught him to do that. Like, don't ever apologize, or like, it's not even apologizing. It's just having the self-awareness of saying, you know what, like, I messed up and I could have done that better. I let my guys down. Like, that's all it is. Like, so that also is a frustrating thing for me because there's no accountability, and instead it turned into like deflection and, well, I didn't practice. I didn't have a playbook. Whose fault is that? I don't know. I don't blame Kyle. If it was Kyle's decision to not give him a playbook, I don't blame Kyle. Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't supposed to be here this season. So I don't blame either of those. Like, and even if Jimmy didn't want a playbook, I don't blame him either for not wanting the playbook, but it's a sorry ass excuse to use in week 3 of the season to say, because you didn't have a playbook, because you didn't practice with these guys, that's why you looked so bad. No, you've looked like this before. What was the excuse last season when you looked like that? I mean, it's just, to me, again, it's the deflecting. It's not having the self-awareness or the accountability to be able to say, like, this is what I did wrong. That's the frustrating thing. Maybe there's a very small chance that because he didn't practice, there's a small reason for why he didn't look as good. But come on, no, it's definitely not enough to bring up in your post-game presser after a loss and say that is the reason. Especially when last week he said it was like riding the bike, and the offense is largely the same. These play calls aren't any different from last season. All the skill position players are the same. All the receivers are the same. So if it was like riding a bike last week, what is it? Why was it something different this week? Why was it the fact that you didn't have the playbook? You didn't practice with these guys. That's what I'm talking about. He doesn't have like accountability for anything he does. And that, to me, that's something that bothers me. Apparently, maybe it doesn't bother the other players on this team, but that would bother me if I was in the locker room. But I'm also not in the locker room, so I don't freaking know. Des says that defense is so good, and what a waste. Jimmy is just bad. Yeah, I mean, like I said, the defense put on a great performance. I'm going to try to escape the sun here. Jesus Christ. Oh, my God. Yeah, the defense put a great performance. And, I mean, like I said, it's really just up to the offense to not screw it up. That's what they have to do. And like I said, Jimmy Garoppolo finds new ways to screw it up. I mean, that safety was I can't even find the words, honestly. Just very, very, very frustrating. Ty says Jimmy has been here for 5 years. Shouldn't he know the playbook? Yeah, he should. He does know the playbook. Like I said, he's deflecting. He's making up excuses. And on top of him not having accountability for himself, he turns to making excuses about why he looked bad. He's lucky he could even have an excuse, because most of the time he doesn't. Last season, he didn't have excuses. The season before that, he didn't have excuses he can make. It's always about, oh, we just got to execute. We didn't execute. No, you didn't execute. God, yeah. Ty says, bingo. Last week, it was like riding a bike. This week, he needs a playbook. Really? Yeah, he's had the playbook. The playbook hasn't changed, so that's BS, right? Yeah, that sun is smacking. Yeah, it is. I need to remember, this is like the worst time of the day to do my podcast, because like the sun is just like theming. I need to get like one of those window skirts that covers that top part up there because it's brutal. Dawson says, I'm already over this game, on to Los Angeles. Well, good luck, Dawson, because I'm sure that I'm already like, I'm so nervous about that game. Like, Kyle Shanahan is going to need to put together some magic for that one because I'm nervous. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I can't wait to just like cleanse myself of this game and just move on. You know, you got to do it at some point. And so after I do this live, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm just going to start getting ready for my preview episodes this week and just looking forward to, you know, next week. That's all we can do. But yeah, I mean, that's all I wanted to say about this freaking game. It was just atrocious from the offense. The defense, as always, they never let us down, the defense. And I don't blame them for, you know, giving up points there at the end. They were gassed. The offense should have known they were gassed. So it was always up to the offense to hold up their end of the bargain. And they just can't do that sometimes. So, and I'm telling you guys now, with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback, we're going to see a loss like this again in the season. I don't know when, but we'll see we'll see a game that plays out exactly like this again, where the defense looks great, the offense starts off nice, and then they just fall stagnant. The defense is on the field a lot, and then the defense gives up a late score because they're just gassed at that point. We're going to see it again. Just letting you guys know. Yeah, Ty says at least 2 more times. Jimmy will do Jimmy things. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just letting you guys know now. This is the Jimmy Garoppolo experience, okay? He's going to have some good games too, but he's going to have some really, really ugly ones that is just going to make us want to, you know, squeeze something. But all right, guys, that's all I wanted to say about this game. I hate talking about it. I hate. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. And but then I feel optimistic about the rest of the season. I think they'll figure it out. There will be better games, but yeah, they just gotta. They got to start turning it around this upcoming week against the Rams. So we'll see what happens. They're gonna have to do it without Trent Williams, and we know Aaron Donald probably have a crazy game, you know, as he does. But yeah, all right, guys. I'll be doing a preview episode on Wednesday, and yeah, I mean, just looking ahead now. All right, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe if you have not yet. And I appreciate all of you. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.